Amazing. Once again, the interwebs have worked their magic and we find ourselves live. And I want to, before we kick off our hot seat today, the e-learning hot seat, I want to remind everybody that OpenLMS, we are really excited. We're going to actually have our first in-person event in October. So if you're watching the recording of this or you're watching us live right now, I encourage you to go over to elearnsuccessseries.com and get on our wait list. We're going to be starting, I think they're going to be opening up ticket sales in like 2 weeks at the beginning of July. But, it's the first time the first time OpenLMS has been able to have an in-person event, and we're pretty psyched. So 18th to 20th of October this year. And, last year we had Innovation 2021 online. It was a ton of fun. We had a ton of great speakers and really pushed the boundaries of what's happening in the near future, right? Not like sort of 5 years from now or 10 years, but what's happening in the next 12 to 24 months in online learning. And, I think it's going to be that's a great way to kind of segue into our conversation. And today I have a guest. His name is Eric Prospero. Eric, we're going to bring you up here in 2 seconds and Shazam, there we are. Fantastic. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. I have a quick question. Why did you guys choose Phoenix?
That is a fantastic and... I'd have to give you a corporate answer because OpenLMS is owned by a company called the Learning Technologies Group, which is a public UK company. Mm-hmm. And there's just a process that they go through of, what destinations make the most sense. Our audience is mostly in North America. And then, what hotels are available. We have a certain budget that we work within. So there's a whole bunch of like criteria that you look at in order to choose that. I mean, they were looking at a bunch of different options. Like, I find it fascinating. They were looking at Cancun. They were looking at Miami. They were looking at San Diego, and it's like, where do people, whenever you put on an event, you got to ask yourself, where are people interested in going to as a destination? What's affordable?
Arizona. That's definitely there. No, and
you and me both, brother. You and me both. Like, the last place that but at the same time, it's really interesting because I have, socialized this with quite a few people in our audience, and the reactions, hey, Phoenix, nice place, and then you look at the hotel and whatnot, it's quite nice. I'm like, wow.
I live here, so I'm excited. I actually live in Phoenix, and that's what's great.
Oh, wow, cool, right on, awesome.
We're based in Phoenix, so I was curious.
Last time I talked, I thought why do I have Guatemala in my head then?
Oh, so we our corporate office is in Phoenix. We have instructional designers, marketing, sales staff here, but our production studio, at least the larger one, is in San Salvador. So we have a US-based presence that's, I would say, small to medium-sized, but our larger team is in El Salvador.
El Salvador, that's what it was, right? Sorry, I apologize. Yes. But I can actually say we chose because of you, Eric. We wanted to come and hang out. We knew the corporate headquarters. We knew we knew you made the choice for a reason. No, but anyway, you are the chief ninja at Ninja Tropics, which, if you just hear the name, nobody really knows what it is. So tell us the Ninja Tropics, like 2 minute story. What is it that you put into the e-learning universe, and sort of what you offer, and then we'll talk about what that means.
So we initially started off as a microlearning video and animation studio, and we've stayed true to our niche. It's something we do very well. And one of the things that we're known for is doing it in volume. So I started this business about 5-6 years ago, working for a nonprofit, and I had a very ambitious boss. Her name was ML, and she was scary. I mean, she's my mentor now, but she was very scary at the time, and she had this vision of competing with a lot of these venture-backed firms that were producing a lot of video content, because that's how they monetize, right? People prefer paying for video. It was something that was effective, and she said, Eric, we need you to produce X amount of videos and do it in this amount of time. So it was a challenge because we had a nonprofit budget. It wasn't necessarily something that I can.
As someone who's worked in the nonprofit world for 15 years or more, I totally get it. Yeah.
It's hard too, because I can
tell me this. It's not only the budget, but it's the, and I don't want to side rail your story, but or sidetrack your story, but it's a mindset too. The nonprofit world has a particular mindset about how can you spend money, how do you budget it, how do you take risk. It's very different than, especially if you consider venture backed, sort of a VC backed kind of firm, and then you put a nonprofit, the mentality, and I mean this not in a derogatory way, but it's a mindset, it's a framework that you come to the table with.
Oh yeah, you'll have people who are leading the nonprofit that's been in the association space for years, so they don't even have sometimes they don't necessarily have that mindset for innovation or what's cool. But fortunately, I did. ML, she was very ambitious. She wanted to run the company or run the nonprofit like a company. And Good. She said, hey, look, Eric, take this very big budget and do what you can. And for her and for us, it was a decent sized budget. We're like, all right, we had about $100K to work with.
Awesome, man. That's a great pot of money to start with, man. That's fantastic.
The issue, and unfortunately, we needed to produce about 110 videos with advanced animation. And if you really think about like the cost and the time and effort, even hiring 2 internal animators, that puts us into $120,000 a year, and 2 animators alone can't produce. Maybe you can get 20, 30 videos. If they're 100% focused, nothing bad happens and the content's ready. So we had freelancers at the time. We were struggling there, and I thought, okay, we got to figure out how we can hire this out. So I went to some agencies, and I don't want to mention the name, but I mentioned the scope of work, and I told them our budget, and they basically laughed and they said, hey, look, it's not going to be possible. It's a lot of work. You guys can't do this. I was like, okay, well, fortunately, I had a background in supply chain operations. I said, okay, maybe we can source a portion of this out abroad, right? It's very common, where at least the very advanced stuff, we can get some type of deal. And I went to companies.
Can I sidetrack your conversation one more time too?
Of course.
One of the things I find really interesting as well is that when we still think of it, and I'm as guilty as anybody, but I just noticed this in your narrative that let's outsource it abroad.
Yeah.
Like there is no such thing as abroad anymore, right? No. It's just that people, I mean, you and I I'm in Mexico, you're in Phoenix, Christian, our colleague in the background here, he's in Colombia. I just talked about a company in the UK. Like there is no abroad anymore. We're all in the same boat all the time. It's just an interesting thing, right? It's just about finding the right talent with the right price point at the end of the day. But 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, that wasn't even, even that's still being socialized in our brain. So I apologize, but I love that that's just not a thing.
Yeah, and there's definitely different kinds of abroad too, right? There's outsourcing, which is very, very far away, and there's nearshoring, right? And so being in Mexico City, even Colombia. Actually, I was there last week. I was visiting the team in Colombia last week, and it was, they work in Eastern time, sometimes Central, so perfect. But my challenge was try to find options in the Philippines and India, and it was just frustrating. It still felt disconnected. Very talented people, but the time zone.
It's a 12-hour difference, man. Yeah. That's super difficult. Yeah.
But fortunately, I was recently reading a book called The 4-Hour Work Week. And have you read that book?
Tim Ferriss. Absolutely. 100%. And honestly, truthful answer is no, I've never read it. I've heard so many people talk about it that I feel like I know the book backwards.
I love the honesty. Honestly, the title sums it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know the premise. I've been in the startup entrepreneur game forever. Like I totally get it, but yeah, no, I never read it, never bought it. So
it's a solid book. I like it. I mean, if you're trying to program yourself to be a little more efficient and disconnected at work, great book. I recommend it. The main takeaway that I got was, hey, look, you can multiply yourself or you can create more time by hiring people in different areas, right? Whether if it's a freelancer locally, people abroad. And they actually suggested different companies in Latin America. Then I was thinking, okay, well, that actually could work. It's the same time zone. There's a little more alignment with culture, and it's easier to jump on a call. So I found this company that was essentially focused on virtual admin services. And I said, look, find me an animator. I can teach them certain softwares, and I can build up a team this way. But then the person we hired ended up having a master's in animation. He spoke 3 languages. He knew more about American culture that he was going. He wouldn't stop talking about an Iron Maiden concert that he just went to. And then I was thinking, this guy's cooler than I am. Like I haven't done anything exciting or fun like this in a while. So, and he's actually my business partner today. We built up a really cool system for that association at the time. And I thought, you know what, this is solving a very annoying problem about scaling video learning content. So that's our 2-minute story told over 9.5 minutes.
Sweet. So what I find interesting is that you seem to be, when you say video content, in my brain, that means like, hey, I picked up an iPhone or I've got a camera, and that's what I'm calling video. Are you conflating or including animation in there, or are you talking truly like video, like what we're doing right now?
Well, there's different kinds of video, right? And it really depends on the audience and the business purpose behind it. So my background is in content monetization, right? Especially in the association space, we need to produce something that people are willing to pay for. And so there's a big difference between content marketing content, right? And then structured learning content. So in my mind, video, at least from an educational perspective and in the frame of how do we monetize this content, is usually somewhat nicely produced, very organized, structured, and tied to a curriculum specifically for education. Now, could you produce that with recorded webinars? Yeah, actually, a lot of our clients come to us with, hey, look, we have these recorded Zoom calls that we've been using for content, but we need something that doesn't look like something you can find off of YouTube. So there's video as a range. It's definitely our favorite medium. But again, you have everything that could be a TikTok video that's 30 seconds, very quick, or something a little more structured, like I would say LinkedIn Learning, which in my mind, what they're doing has been the best for a while. Like I love the structure, very effective in terms of combining passive learning with interactive, and it's what people are willing to pay for. And actually, that's a good point too, because I think if you look at what people are willing to pay for in terms of content, just look at the biggest companies out there, right? Skillshare, LinkedIn Learning, most content monetization sites. They know what sells. They know what companies are willing to pay for. They know what their audience wants. And it's really rare that you're going to see cell phone footage there, right? You won't see, let's say, cell phone footage or recorded. I mean, some associations still are selling access to recorded webinars or Zoom calls. But again, I just got off a call where they said, we don't want to have this type of content because our truck drivers won't respond to it. So it's,
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, I won't even watch it. And honestly, I designed this because I have a terrible attention span. Like I struggle to finish a 4-minute video. Like and that's me skipping. Okay, I got it. Like I'm one of those like 2.5 audible speed guys while walking because I need to multitask. And I think
but can you go to the movie theater and be engaged?
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, video is clearly the best vehicle for storytelling, and that's what you need. Like I know what are the main tools out there? Storyline, Captivate. Like you could tell a story in those products, but can you keep people engaged for an hour, right? When they're clicking next, and that's where I think people struggle with. But video,
I think we're stumbling into, or you've introduced, let's not say stumble, you've very introduced like what is the crux of the learning, the crux, this is the main problem that we have to solve. Or I guess let me characterize it positively. This is the business opportunity for, universities, for corporations, for entrepreneurs, for whomever, is understanding that combination of the need for the need for immediacy, but at the same time, the need for storytelling and quality, right? And finding that perfect Venn mix for your audience, because not every, like the Reddit community is not going to need the same kind of quality and sort of depth as a community of physicists or a community of microbiologists or others who are really interested in a particular topic, right? And so it's knowing, it comes back to all these little core principles of knowing your audience, understanding the form that you're going to be actually presenting your material in. What's your ultimate outcome with the content? Is it just credibility? Are you actually passing information? Those kinds of things, right? I'm going to pause and get your reaction to what I just said.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a big fan of storytelling, incorporating it to microlearning as much as you can, but also it depends on the content, right? I mean, if you're dealing with very engineering-based corporate content, it's kind of difficult to tie in a story to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, what could you get people to finish, right? Like, how do you keep them engaged long enough? How do you, in a way, respect them so they take the time to actually sit through your course? And again, there's different things you can do. And for us, our vehicle is making sure that the video is engaging in terms of speed, length, and then of course the amount of movement. So it's we've produced videos that were, and we'll talk to clients. Let's just say they come in with cybersecurity content that's very technical, and sometimes the response is, and again, this is not me pushing video or selling it when I'm talking to them, but they'll say, hey, look, this is very technical. It's not going to be a good vehicle. It's not going to be a good content for video. Then what else would you want it to be? Would you want it to be scripted or like just text that they read? At least with this format, it's something a little more comfortable. Let's keep the engaging stories, the fun stories, the things that you read, because I think video has a power to, at least because it's a little more designed for an easier user experience, it makes boring content better. Now, if you have a fun story that hooks people, you know what, keep it text-based. Like now it would be an awesome video. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with pacing, different frames and shots that get people excited, that even in its nature alone get people pumped. But if you're trying to keep the balance there, I would say keep boring content for video, and then actually keep the fun content, the things that naturally have stories. Keep that text-based because it naturally has that appeal.
What's the, I know we wanted to talk about where you're going, or, you're like, we're basically focusing on how do we get to that content that's relevant for your client or your learner or whomever. Talk to me about the different places where I correct me if I'm wrong. You're mostly focused in corporate clients, business clients, those kinds of things. Juxtapose that to me with an academic audience, a truly academic audience, where you either have adult learners, sort of soon to be adult learners, or, non-adult learners. Like, are those same principles? Do they apply across all of these genres, or are we really struggling right now in this conversation with the corporate learner who is pressed for time, who doesn't really want to feel like a student? They want, they want the knowledge, they want to get in and out. Again, let me leave it there for you.
So our true niche is video microlearning, and that creates some problems for us as a business because we service a lot of different industries, most of them being in the corporate space. Right. Mm-hmm. So you can say you'll see on our site that there's a very specific corporate portion just for them because that's who we focus on. But we actually have been working with a lot more innovative universities, people who care about their brand in terms of content. The issue is on the academic side, and we've been to conferences where we've had booths. They get excited, but there's just too much administrative work. But if anything, you have these programs that people are paying $30,000, $40,000 a year for, and they're recording. Like my wife, for example, and it's kind of disappointing. Like I think she's paying about $20,000 a year for an MBA program, and they're recording webinars and reusing these old boring content tapes, and then they have a different instructor that says, okay, that's the content, and this is an MBA program, and it drives me crazy because if anything, like that's a lot of money that people are paying, and it's almost like you're just being dismissive of their time, half-assing this content. So
it's a little criminal, isn't it? Where it's just like, it's like the professor to show up and be like, hey, this is the same video I used, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and it's like, come on, man, up your game a little, like it's 2022, almost 2023. Like let's get in the game here.
And there are some innovative universities out there. One of them, Johns Hopkins, we've started working with a few departments out there that are trying to scale up their content production. And it's great because they reach out to us when their internal team is at capacity, which this is a common issue across every industry, right? It's not just the corporate space where instructional designers are busy. It's universities where their instructional design team has to service an entire university. So
sure, you got 1,000 professors and you got 3 instructional designers. At the end of the day, you're basically you're almost committing a crime there, because you're going to have all of these requests, and then what happens? Then the professor gets frustrated because they don't get served, or what they get served is, half-assed, and
Mhm.
then they end up having this poor opinion about what great instructional design could be. It's a real problem. It's a real issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some good examples out there, not even the ones I'm like working with us. I think Florida International University, they have an innovation department that's focused on producing engaging content. And what's great about universities is the fact that sometimes they'll throw money at this where they're producing like the peak of innovation in terms of simulations, 3D, VR stuff, where you can actually interact with a lot of content. The issue is it's not necessarily virtual when you have to show up to a certain place to use it and learn it. And then also it's a little expensive to produce. But so there are universities out there doing cool stuff, but I just see video as, especially if it's evergreen, to put a little more effort and time into it, because it does matter for people. People look at the content you watch, even this video. I mean, is it something you're going to try to monetize, or is it something that's more of a content marketing portion, right? And there's a lot of general content marketing out there. So I think it just changes the standards of what's expected.
100%. Absolutely. So what are your, give me a couple of good examples of, if I come to you as a potential client and I say, look, here's a piece that I want to create. Like, do you have examples of great microlearning or great animation that you put on the table and say, look, here's 5 examples of great stuff that either you've produced or other people produce. Let's go down one of these paths, or how do you start that conversation?
Well, it depends, because we have this struggle talking to our clients in terms of how do we categorize our work. And there's a lot of different types, right? There's the industry focus, that there's a type of training content, there's the art style, there's the animation style. And we have clients that reach out to us that say, hey, look, they know what they want. They want to produce whiteboard style videos that look like this, that teach this type of value-oriented content. Or we'll have an insurance company that reaches out to us and say, hey, look, we need to develop compliance training for this specific audience. So the first thing we do is, if we're trying to show them what's possible, is we identify the industry, identify the type of content, and then find examples for them. And the cool thing about this, and unfortunately it's not ready, is by next month, we should have a very easy library of microlearning examples out there for you to see. Because I think that's missing in the industry, is the fact that nobody knows, hey, what is either average to amazing stuff, and what does it look like? Because right now, and unfortunately, a lot of good content is behind a gate, right? You don't know, like the only thing you can compare it to is what's on YouTube or like TEDx style videos. Mm-hmm. So there are good companies out there doing amazing things, and it's something I want to start highlighting a lot more. So to answer your question, we just start off with an industry. We figure out what their goals are, what their challenges are, and really break it down into what's the content strategy and how microlearning video can be useful there.
You just compared like a TED Talk, or let's just use a TED Talk. I wouldn't necessarily call, a 20-minute TED Talk microlearning, or, as opposed to like, your 1-minute TikTok video or your Instagram reel or those kinds of things. Are you saying microlearning in your mind? Like, what's that length look like? What is that, is it, it when you see it?
Yeah, nobody knows what it means. It just gets the people going. All right. I have, I don't have a length for microlearning, because we get that question all the time. What is the ideal length for this particular audience? And like, I don't know. Like, it depends on what you're trying to teach. Like and sometimes I'll joke and say 2 or 3 minutes, but it's, I don't know what to tell you, because it really depends. We can show you like what's common. So far, the most common product, if we were to average the length of all of our videos, is about 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. So now,
which is much longer than my mind. Like, I would, the universe is like, you mentioned the truck drivers, earlier, that just kind of stuck in my head. I'm just thinking, this is a universe of people who probably, they're driving along, and then they're taking their 20-minute break, every couple of hours and whatnot. They hop on TikTok, they hop on Instagram, like, then they're being fed that, mm-hmm. that universe of 1-minute clips. And so is 4 minutes even too long? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, and it also depends. That particular client, they're actually trying to monetize some of it. So it's hard for them to sell packages of content where they have like hundreds of 1-minute TikTok video. So it'd be kind of a bit of a challenge for them. But I come from the generation where 4 minutes was a good video length. But now apparently you have Gen Z, and a lot of everyone's getting used to shorter and shorter, which is true, because yesterday I actually cooked flautas, which is like a Mexican dish, and I learned it from a 45-second TikTok video.
Did you actually learn it? Okay, so this is a conversation I had on the other one. So did the video actually teach you, or did it motivate you to then go find either the recipe or the bigger, like the bigger video or the bigger recipe somewhere? And
No. I mean, like, I think the best videos are motivational, right? If you really want your learning video to be effective, you have to change their behavior or action. So even if it was mostly motivational, I would say that's the best video. That is one of the best learning videos you could have, just because my behavior shifted. I'm doing something, and that's a success.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the interesting, we on an earlier conversation, I can't remember if it was Mark Lassoff or
and by the way, he's my hero. I love Mark Lassoff. This is
You'll get to know that. He'll like to know that. No, he's fantastic, and I encourage everybody, if you're listening to the recording of this or anything, go check out that episode too. He's a kick in the pants, man.
LinkedIn tells me whenever Mark Lassoff comments on other people's stuff, because he's very direct, he's fun, and he tells the truth. So big fan of that guy. But sorry, please continue.
No worries. I was going to say, I can't remember if it's Mark Lassoff. There's another gentleman named Josh Cavalier. Both of them had really great conversations around doing video, and I can't remember which one of them said at the end of our conversation, we were talking about TikTok and Reels being videos that are essentially motivational. And I agree with you that if I am jazzed by a particular creator and I'm feeling like, wow, like I'm attached to them, like they grab my attention, that's great. But what we found was, or at least the proposition was, so many people don't take that next step to then either monetize or take you to the actual learning content, right? Where it's like, hey, here's this great flauta, and I'm going to show you, hey, here's the fold, here's the thing, here's the frying, here's the beans, but okay, you need to have that next step for the true amateur who, is living in Poughkeepsie, who doesn't have any idea. This is the first time I ever see a flauta, and they think, wow, that looks great. So you've got to take them to that next step, right? And so that's what I was kind of wondering, in your experience, do you just know enough about flautas that you had all the stuff ready, or did you have to go find, okay, here's the ingredients I need, here's the step-by-step?
I love this conversation because it's combining Mexican food and e-learning. So
amen, bro. Hey, vivo en Ciudad de Mexico, man. Come on.
Man, I'm jealous of you, so congrats. And so let's jump into my flauta experience, because it's tied to the content. I've actually never made one before. So before this video, I never made one. I saw it. Now, am I an entry? I wouldn't say I'm 100% entry level, but I've been working with a company. Let's just say I'm working with a company for a year. I kind of know of the process, but I know of the components. So in this case, all right, I get the concept of how to make salsa. I know what frying is, but this video just showed me the sequence of how I should do it. And then I said, you know what? I can do that with everything I have here in the refrigerator. Let's give that a shot. So it walked me through. It was actually a very detailed process video that was effective, because while I was cooking, I pulled up the same video and I pressed play, and I said, okay, great. This is what I have to do now. This is what he's doing. And again, very powerful video, and it was under 45 seconds. And I'll figure out how to send a link to everybody. But I think trying to remember the Instagram. By the way, I watched this
right now is feverishly looking for flautas on TikTok.
Well, no, and the funny thing too is it was a TikTok video on Instagram, just because
of course,
that's how I watch Instagram videos. But I'll find the video, and if you're trying to make flautas, it's very simple, and it's, for me, who's, I would say, somewhat entry level, right? I know how to cook, but it was enough. So I didn't have to pull up any other type of content. I was able to explore, go through this process on my own, and then again, it was stimulating. It got me excited, where I actually felt confident to do it, where I would say that I learned more from actually doing it, but it was a type of passive learning that gave me the motivation, at least the know-how of these are the steps that I have to do.
Fantastic. Well, then this leads me to my next question, that where, and I think it's a broader topic here. So where did that video find you, or at what moment? So was it just that perfect moment where, hey, it was almost dinner time anyway, and you were flipping through, or you purposely looking for things to cook and eat, or was that? And so my question really is, in your experience, as you're creating and working with clients, are you having the conversation of, we need to produce stuff that can sort of just be introduced in that flow of work? Or are you saying, are most people saying, look, we want our employees or our learners to take specific time out and say, oh, hey, look, it's 3:00 on Thursday. I had booked this time to go learn. Like, do you see where I'm going with that question?
Yeah.
Like, what are you finding is happening more and more?
We're seeing that both are happening. So when our clients, they still like the asynchronous structured content, something you could find on the LMS, but instead of being a 1 hour SCORM compliant storyline course that's not necessarily accessible, they're opting to break it up into 23 minute microlearning videos. A good example recently was a client that was producing customer onboarding training. So they had courses that were very structured, that had 20 microlearning videos, about 3 minutes each, and really simple, easy user experience. You hop onto the course, you watch a video, interact, watch a video, interact, watch a video, interact. But they designed it this way so their customer success team could actually be sending these Vimeo links to clients when there were issues. So they were developing assets that were there as structured learning content, but then also were very accessible after the fact. Because when you're trying to solve a problem, you're not going to remember the training you went through 2-3 months ago. So you need either a library where it's accessible, and actually most LMSs have that option. You can easily hit search. There's a keyword function in there that brings up the very specific microlearning video that you're trying to find. Or in this case, they would ask a customer success team that, hey, look, I'm having this problem, and the team, they had templated emails as well as video links already incorporated in them. So it was relatively easy to do. And I think that's how they achieved both, because it was something that had structure, but then also was very accessible. And for this specific example, I was not looking for flat-clip videos. I think it was just a spur of the moment. But it was one of those, you're right, it was one of those motivational pieces of content where I came across them and I said, you know what, I can do this, and I'm going to try it. So now I know exactly where it is. And when I'm trying to make Flatfest, even though I know the recipe, the video was effective, the process was effective, I know where to find it, the recipe, so to speak.
So you've used the term accessible a couple of times, which I find really, because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're using that term not in sort of, hey, how do we make this accessible to
508 compliance and ADA?
Yeah, exactly, to neurodiverse individuals and whatnot. But you're talking about a great topic. I think Mark and Josh brought it up as well. The friction. Like, how do you remove friction from the learning process? And one of the huge things is, how much content is sitting in either in an LMS or, even on somebody's just sort of feed, like, hey, like, how many times have you clicked on a link and you put it in a save later, or you put it in a notice and you'll never go back to it. And then, wait, how do I find that? Talk to me about how you work with clients to remove friction from the learning process, or from the learning moment, so that when you have a learner who has that, oh, I need to make flautas tonight, exactly how to get there and find it, or, hey, this engine just broke down and we need to know what to do, etc.
We encourage them to have content that they can easily host on their LMS as well as off of their LMS. Now, that's the problem with that, is they won't be able to gather very specific data if it's off their LMS, right? I mean, you don't have the tracking platforms. Now, there's tools like Wistia where you could essentially see how many times a video is being viewed, but if you really want to make it accessible, you need to make it one click away. So there's a lot of our clients reach out to us because they're going through this digital transformation process where they've spent hundreds of thousands, or they're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on an LMS, and that they're really focused on learning experience. So most of them have this feature where You have structured courses, or you have the option to have essentially a resource bank where you can search and find. That would almost feel like a Google. So if your LMS has that option, it's usually a little easier, because if they're trying to figure out how to do something, they're probably going to try to YouTube it, right? Or especially developers. If you talk to any developer, as soon as they run into a problem, Google or YouTube. So if you can make your platform feel like something very similar to what everyone's used to, that's the best case scenario. That way you have the structured content, but if you have something that's accessible, that's a search bar away, that's even better. And then of course, in that customer training examples, we were actually telling them to email the link out. Now, it does solve, I mean, like they wouldn't be able to gather data on it, but they could tell if they watched the video, and then also it solved the problem there. Now, learning managers probably won't like that approach, because you're not necessarily pulling or gathering the data you need on, was this video completed, or what type of results did it produce? But again, somebody had an itch, and it was able to solve or scratch that problem.
And I kind of have two direct, like, so I want to go a little further down that rabbit hole, because you brought it up of, for the learning managers that you're working with, and I want to say this in the nicest way, how much of understanding the effectiveness of learning material is truly used, and how much is sort of lip service? Like we collect a lot of data in the online learning space, right? In whatever format you want to say. I mean, in terms of clicks, watches, views, opens, whatever. Like, how much of it is lip service, and how much of it is, oh wow, hey, we really noticed this video sucks, it's not effective, take it down, put a new one up, or find a new path. Again, I leave it there for you, my friend.
I think instructional designers and learning managers truly care about the effectiveness of the content. It's something that they're excited about. If they had the option, they would iterate videos, they would iterate content based off of how much it was being viewed, where people were stopping, like any type of friction that they saw throughout the course. What we see with a lot of our clients is that there's always new initiatives, new priorities that they get pulled from. I mean, you're dealing with a content strategy that's always growing, and there's always different types of fires. So unfortunately, we don't necessarily see the amount of revisions or changes or updates to content. So we actually even offered it as a service once, where we said, hey, look, we'll edit this as many times as you guys want to, just to see if anybody would take it. And the ones that did never used it. And then the ones that didn't offer it, they actually knew that, hey, look, I mean, we're probably going to sit with this for 1.5 years before we decide to update it again. So they were okay with it. Now, when it comes to data, the issue is you have two different types of metrics. We call them, we break it down, at least for us, we break it down into lead metrics and lag metrics. Lead metrics are very easy to track. Course completion rates, surveys based off the content, right? The type of interactions, everything you can track on the LMS, we see as a lead metric. Now, the lag metrics are the shifts in behavior. Unfortunately, that's what everyone cares about, but there's no way. I mean, you have to be very intentional with how you structure your training and the follow-up and the surveys after. And at that point, that's where you're actually bothering frontline workers to see, like, hey, did they actually change anything? Did they learn the material? That's where the gold is, because that information is very hard to track. So we always try to set up our projects with two metrics, right? What are your lead metrics and what are your lag metrics? And when you're going to come back to actually review both of them. And one of my favorite organizations out there is actually Brandon Hall, because they have an award system that's very focused on lag metrics. So to win one of these awards, you actually need to say a shift in behavior. None of these like vanity metrics about course completions and about
views,
about customer service.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for us to develop something cool. Like that's really easy we can get people excited. It's easy to get people excited through video. Like a good story, a good script, and decent pacing, and people feel. Like that's what's great about videos. I mean, I saw a 45-second TikTok video and I was making Floppas the next day. So video is an easy medium to get people excited over, but the trick is making sure that you shift their behavior after.
I mean, that is the crux of the entire learning, proposition. Excellent. I want to round out our conversation for the next 5 minutes or so. I want to juxtapose, or I want to get your opinion on when animation versus video. You touched on it a little earlier in the thing, but I kind of wanted to just get clear about it. Like, what are the reasons why you would use animation, or are there clear criteria that say, hey, look, this is actually much better suited to animation cartoon rather than like a live video human? What are those criteria that people should think about?
So I own, I mean, we have about 80 animators in house, and we're producing a lot of content, a lot of animated content. But I love live action video. Like if all of our learning content could be a soap opera, that would I would watch that. I mean, like
Telenova, bro. Telenova,
yeah,
get it done.
I mean, and it's something that's exciting. So and I bring it up this way because there's different factors, right? You can have thought leadership content or something that's very mechanical in nature where you have to see. But a lot of times when it comes to live action video or animation, it just boils down to logistics. Is this something that you can film? Now, the trucking example that I was just talking to you about, it was funny. We're producing safety videos, and they were saying, well, we can't necessarily film people doing things we don't want them to do. So it's like, there's logistical concerns with filming people not paying attention while driving, right?
If only I were Adam Sandler and this were a different medium, we would have had a great bit there. I don't know. I feel like.
And that's how you, like, if you have the capacity and resources to tell a story that way, to get people engaged, that is the best. Again, I own an animation studio that specializes in microlearning and interactive and a bunch of other stuff. But I would say live action, like people, and it's something I can feel. But again, there are logistical concerns tied to execution. So yes, there's things that animation is just better suited for, like if it's process oriented or like higher level thought leadership, if you're explaining like the integration of data servers and you need some type of metaphor and analogy. But at the end of the day, it just ties to what's more feasible in terms of logistics. Now, there are some examples where you do have live action video and it's easier to produce. One very common product we've been noticing, actually, and it's something that's becoming a little popular, is a combination of live action host-led videos with animation. So you still have an engaging, professionally developed video that feels comfortable. You see a host that you can connect with, but then when the content's a little more technical, or we're discussing a process or something that you shouldn't be doing, it's easier to animate that portion. So we're seeing, and we're combining a lot more live action with animation. Actually, I would say that's about half of our work.
Excellent. Eric, as with all these conversations, I mean, 40 minutes has flown by for me. And we're kind of coming to the place where we need to wrap things up. I want to ask you two questions. First, the second one is one I ask everybody, but talk to me for just a few minutes about where do you see the next step in video? You and I had kind of had a little chuckle in the green room before this, and I wanted to make sure we touched on it. Where do you see virtual reality going? Where do you see like next, what we might consider next level video experiences? Are those a reality that we're going to get to? Is this just another Second Life kind of stuff that I don't think it'll go the way of the dodo, but it's, is it valuable for certain things? What's your opinion on it? And what's your prediction for the future?
I don't necessarily have a timeline for when VR, ARs, or even things like the metaverse are going to take off. I just know most of my friends, even younger people, Gen Z, don't necessarily have access to them. So video has been an accessible tool that's easy to use. It's very familiar. So I'm waiting for this shift to change now. Unfortunately, I just don't have an answer as to, hey, look, this is something that's going to be popular at this date. But in the meantime, and at least for the next 5 years, it feels weird saying this because I feel biased, but video is king, right? So if it's what people prefer, people pay to have access to video, whether if it's educational, entertainment. And again, I've seen some really cool AR, VR stuff, but it's just not accessible. Like, we're in the realm of virtual learning, you need to be able to access it when you're not on campus in that case, right? You need to be able to, and again, I don't own a headset, and this might be a weird question, but do you have a headset?
In my house, we have several. So
okay. All right.
I mean, I have a 14-year-old son. So
okay.
He's like there.
We should ask him then, because I think that's who I think really knows when this is going to take off, because this is what they're growing up with. But I think everyone right now in the working force didn't necessarily grow up with headsets, right? So it's
Mhm. It's
that's
still a thing. I think you're right. It's still a thing, that another thing you have to do in order to get there, right? It's that friction.
yeah, and it's not necessarily friction. It's just, and I think that that response is great, because it's, what did you grow up with? Video,
Mhm.
right? What do you feel familiar with? It's going to be video. So I'm excited, because if your 14-year-old son, if they're very familiar and they're spending a lot of time on different types of gaming systems in the VR space, that's going to be an exciting future, because that's what they're familiar with. So until he's an active working professional, and actually I would say until he is a majority of the active working professionals, video is going to be the number one medium, because it's what people are familiar with.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we definitely have another 10, decade, if not longer,
because even
before it just becomes, commonplace, unless there's a radical shift like a Google Glass or something like that comes out, where it's, hey, look, these are the glasses, and it can actually just be transmitted there. It's
yeah,
another device.
unless there's something really cool that surprises everybody and just takes off like wildfire. But even the internet took 20, 30 years,
Yeah,
right? It wasn't
100%.
necessarily a quick transition. So even when your son is 24, 25, 26, you'll have to understand that us older millennials we're going to be the majority of the workforce, and we're going to be looking down at these guys and being frustrated about their new innovative ideas. So
Sure, exactly. And we're the ones who are gonna be making the decisions in a lot of cases still, although it'll mostly be women. You and I are going the way of the dodo. Anyway, last question for you is, clearly you're excited about everything that we've talked about here, but is there anything special that you are particularly jazzed about, excited about for the next, short term, for 6 months to 12 months out? A new shiny object could be a new software system, could be another organization, could be anything in the e-learning universe that you'd like to give either a shout out to, or something that you're like, I'm super jazzed about this next thing.
no. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Oh, no one's ever said no
Yeah, I
before.
know.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, like,
You're
there's
the first.
I I mean, I get excited about everything, right? I'll tell you, like, hey, look, this is a cool learning
You did get
experience.
excited about Flautas, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm a very excitable person. So, is there anything specific in terms of technology or people? Well, technology, no. But what I am excited about is the changing control in terms of generation.
Mhm.
So millennials are starting to take the wheel, and again, they have higher standards in terms of content. So that's what I'm excited, because that has a lot of different types of implications on how we see technology in the learning space. Like it's no longer going to be a burden to be innovative, and our generation is, I mean, like they're ready for it. So I'm excited, because I see a lot more control going to that group, where funner types of content, whether it's AR, VR, things in the metaverse. Even though I don't have access to any of those, maybe I'm behind the wheel. Like they're going to be a little more popular. There will be a lot more experimentation with those things, where before it was just dismissed. So I'm not necessarily excited about any particular technology, but just the shift in control. And again, our company is, I think, we're 98% millennials at our company. So we're pretty excited to be ready for this type of innovation, or where the industry goes.
Fantastic. Eric Prospero, you are the chief ninja at Ninja Tropic. This has been a delightful conversation. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day there in Phoenix. And I wish you all the best, and I hope that we'll be able to have another conversation sometime soon.
Appreciate that. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day. All right. Make sure to find that Flauta video.
Absolutely.
Cheers.